everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. We are starting a brand new historical project today, and actually it's a historical cosplay. So for those of you who have been wanting more American Girl content, here you are. And for those of you who have been wanting more Regency content, here you are, because this week I am going to be making a Regency redingote. It's kind of similar to a pelisse. Basically, a redingote is a coat that doesn't close all the way, that functions more like a coat, and a pelisse is more like a coat dress. This one kind of looks like a pelisse, because this is what I'm making, but technically it does not close all the way down the front. So this is Caroline, the American Girl. I know I don't have her out here right now. She's wearing a Halloween costume, but this is her redingote. And as you can see, it's got a little bit of gathering in an otherwise plain sleeve. It's got a nice white furry collar, velvet details over here and at the waist, and then some cute gold buttons. So overall, it is pretty simple. I haven't yet decided if I want to make it more, because really a redingote could be anywhere from even simpler than this, frankly, like completely plain, to, you know, all sorts of piping used and little tabs everywhere and very intricate sleeves. It could just be really a mixture. And I kind of want to keep with the spirit of this, so I don't want to go too overboard. So I do already have all of the fabrics for this, but I'm still trying to kind of decide between some of the fabrics as far as trimming goes. My main fabric I actually got as Joann's was going out of business. It's not wool, because that wasn't in the budget. It is acrylic. So acrylic gives a pretty decent substitution a lot of times to wool. It's super soft, but it is a little bit more drapey than you would see in like a wool flannel or something like that. Now, I have not yet washed this fabric, so I don't know what it's going to do in the wash. I am going to wash this before I start cutting it. I don't really mind that it is super drapey, but I'm thinking that I might actually line this just to give it a little bit more body, particularly with the skirts. I mean, Regency things are still very straight and columnar, but I do kind of feel like a redingote tends to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more body. In fact, if all else fails, I've got so much of this, I could line this with itself, kind of to give it that little bit of extra thickness, or I could decide to line this with something possibly a little bit stiffer. So I'm gonna put this in the wash and decide on the lining before I start getting cutting. And then as far as trim fabrics go, for the white fur, I have two options. These are both faux fur. This one, I think, is left over from Holiday Barbie. I'm pretty sure. Actually, I think I may have gotten this at Joann's years ago, and it is like a pretty high pile, like furry, fluffy, but it's actually kind of nice and soft. It has a rather stiff backing, but I don't know if I want it to be this high pile, because I feel like when you start to do this much, it starts to look a lot more fake, to be honest. And then this is my other option. I believe I actually got this at the bargain basement at Costume College years and years and years ago, and it is a much lower pile. It's still nice and soft. The backing is a little bit softer as well, and this one though does have a ribbed effect through it. I don't know if you can see that on camera. They're pretty wide ribs, but it does have a ribbed effect that the collar on hers does not actually have. Hers is really probably more like a minky or something like that, to be honest. It's really soft. It's a low pile, and it doesn't have the fur on the bottom. It's got like a satin lining on the bottom, but it's just a really nice little soft fold over collar. And then as far as the velvet details go, I have two options for the velvet as well. I have this navy cotton velvet. The problem with this is that it does read very, very black, I feel like. This is actually left over from one of my first ever historical costumes ever. Like, literally, like this one in 2010. That's when I made this, 2010. So this is stuff that has been sitting in my stash for 15 years, but it's just literally a cotton velvet. This is actually cut off of a caroling costume that I altered, and this somehow wound up in my stash afterwards. I don't have very much of it, but it is kind of like a grosser, like poly velvet or nylon velvet, the type of stuff that you would find in those big bolts in someplace like Joann's, and it does crush fairly easily. As you can see, there are also seams going through this because I think this was literally a cut off hem. Honestly, the cotton velveteen I think is a little bit closer to the color on Caroline's Police or Redingote. It's still a little darker, and then there's this one, which is a bolder blue. So I'm most likely gonna go with the cotton velvet, but I do have this as an option as well. But basically we're doing all of this from stash. I mean, technically I did buy the acrylic for this project, but it's now been sitting in my stash for several months. So that counts as stash, right? Plus it was super, super cheap because it was while Joann's was going out of business. So yeah, I'm gonna go shove that in the wash, and while I do that, let's talk about the pattern. But before we talk about the patterns, just a quick reminder that this is your last week to sign up for the Costumes and Castles trip to Ireland, where we are going to stay in a castle together and have a professional photographer with different costumed photo shoots each day and so much more. So again, this is the last week to sign up. All of the details are linked down below in the description, as well as how to register. Definitely get that registration in right away if you are interested in joining. There is still room in the trip, but the registration does close this week. So hopefully I will see you in Ireland. Now let's talk about the pattern. I will be using the Laughing Moon Ladies Front Opening Police and Spencer for this project. This is one that I've used, I think, just once before. I made this dress out of it, which I really don't get very much wear out of, unfortunately, because it's silk, but it's a police, which like is not the most practical thing. That one is actually a police also, so it does not open up all the way, so I can't wear it over an undergown. So it wasn't the best choice. I think that this as a redingote is going to be a lot more practical. And actually, I am making this for an event that may or may not happen. Because I'm making this for an event that's happening in just like 2 or 3 weeks, or at least it might happen in 2 or 3 weeks, but it takes place on an army base. And with the government shut down, if the government is still shut down, this event is not happening. So I don't know yet whether I will actually get to wear this for this event or not, but at least I will have a nice cozy police in my costume wardrobe, because frankly that is something that is super practical, especially for this area. We got a lot of Regency events, and in winter it's cold. So here we are. A Regency redingote or police in a cozy nice fabric is really practical for Washington. It's practical for probably most places except maybe Texas or Florida. But yeah, I've used this pattern before. I remember it being really nice to use, so I'm hoping that it will be great. I don't know if I have like kind of altered pieces in there, because I made that other dress probably 2016, like the police dress. I think I made that like 2016 or something like that. So it's been a long time. It was long before I started videos on this channel. And this pattern does also have other options for like more decorative sleeves, which is why I might decide to do that. But I think let's cross that bridge once we get to it, because I'm also in rehearsals for a show right now. I am rehearsing as Grace and Annie, and I'm very busy. So yeah, I don't know how much sewing time I really have, but I'm excited to get this together and maybe, hopefully, be able to wear it to an event. So let's go ahead and do a bodice mock-up for the bodice of this redingote. So as I was slightly concerned about, I don't have like the original mock-up for this pattern, and really the only notes that I have on this pattern, like at all, yeah, I didn't cut stuff off, but basically on the front pattern, I lengthened it 1.5 inches at the lengthen or shorten here line. And then down here I have this line drawn on. And I also have that line continuing on the bodice side back piece just a little bit until it kind of tapers out right here. And then again, like no other markings or anything on there. Then on the back pieces, so on this pattern we have a bodice back lining, and then we have the bodice back. And I believe the difference here is that the bodice back is gathered into the lining. Now that's not something that exists on Caroline's redingote, so I don't know if I actually want to do that or not. So frankly, I think I may play with the lining, which I'm trying to remember if that's what I did to begin with anyway, because this one is notated. This again says 1.5 inches lengthened at the length and extend. So did the side back, by the way. That also said the 1.5. So yeah, I don't really know what I did. So I pulled out the original Redingote here that I made several years ago. And I figure I can kind of hold up the pieces and try and compare with what I did. Obviously that's not a perfect method, but it's better than nothing. Because yeah, like I have a fitted back on this. I believe I made this like based off of an extant or something. I don't have the original, like I don't know what I was doing on this. I'm sure I have an old LiveJournal blog post about it somewhere, but yeah, I did not do the gathered back, so I'm probably going to skip the gathered back on this too, since again Caroline doesn't have it. I'm not going to do fancy sleeves, I think. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do fancy sleeves. That's something that I can add almost like when it's almost finished even, because literally even if I've already set the sleeves, I could reset the sleeves and just incorporate that into the seam. It's very, very easy to add on because otherwise it's completely separate when you do these fancy sleeves. And I've also been looking at the collar pattern pieces, and I'm going to be doing kind of a hybrid between two of the collars, but we'll talk about that more when we get to that, which frankly, that's going to be next week's video because we're nowhere near getting to collars this week since we're obviously just starting with the mock-up. And as you can see on this one, this was where I actually did sew together the skirt down here. It just opens with the hooks and eyes right here, which I think I'm going to do hooks and eyes with Caroline's as well and do fake buttons, but I'm not positive on that, but I think that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, I'm going to take my pattern pieces and just try and hold them up and compare to what I actually did here so that I can see what works. Because it's really weird to me otherwise that I literally just have these on like the size 26 and it didn't change at all. But if I remember correctly, this fits fine. So I am gonna go based off of what I did on this because I don't remember having fit issues with the finished product of this, but I don't remember how we got to the finished product. So it does seem that these markings are pretty correct. I really don't know why I lengthened and then shortened. It's not the exact same amount because this does vary where it shortens, whereas this is 1.5 inches across the board. I mean, frankly, probably what happened is that was my original, I am lengthening this for my mock-up. Oh wait, it's too long, I'm shortening it. Because really I noticed that the dart, the finished dart, is frankly like the full length. It is not the shortened length of the dart. So yeah, the front piece, as much as you can kind of manipulate a paper piece that is flat to like kind of lay on top of a piece that is darted and very not flat, it seems to be correct-ish. Hopefully. This one does actually seem like it is maybe a little bit wide, like I maybe took it in and forgot to mark that, but it's minimal, like taking it in like 1/4 inch at the side seam or something like that, and really only at the waist, not at the underarm. So I think I'm just going to cut these as is, but taking into account that I did cut them shorter. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm honestly tempted to just kind of start from scratch and like cut the full length, including my 1.5 inch lengthening. This one, what was weird here was I felt like I had just a little bit extra seam allowance at the neckline. Like maybe I dropped that down a hair bit because this is my seam line for the collar, which then means seam allowance is on top of that, but that is obviously more than like 1/2 inch. To be honest, I don't even know if this is 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch seam allowance. I haven't read the instructions yet, but oh, look at that. It's right on here. 5/8 inch seam allowance included. So my math could be a little bit wrong because I was mostly holding these up with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. But yeah, I think I might actually do my mock-up with like the full length, not the parts that I had already removed on here, and see what that looks like because it's very easy to shorten, but if I have to lengthen, I have to recut. So I'm just gonna kind of do this from scratch with my 1.5 inch lengthening and see how that works out. All right, mock-up is on. Yes, I made it in navy blue, so it's going to be hard to see, but I'm thinking about using this for my lining. This is actually some fabric that I picked up at the thrift store this week, and it was like, I think $9, though I had a coupon, and I think now that I've washed it that it may actually be a chambray, which is, you know, probably not what I'm supposed to be using for lining in a situation like this, but it does feel like cotton, possibly cotton poly blend, and there's tons of it. I forget, I think I measured the yardage, but I forget what it was. I want to say it was like 5 yards. So I was thinking this might work well as a lining. It has like a kind of a sateen side on one side and a twill side on the other. And it's pretty nice and smooth and crisp. So I figured if this works, then, you know, I'll save myself the trouble and I'll just use this as the lining. But it doesn't quite work yet. I think we can get there. It's too big for one thing. Like, I think you can tell that this overlap is very, very large, even with the dark color. It is supposed to go to like here. And that would be like this much too big. It's also flying out weirdly in the back. And obviously the like length is very strange. It's high and then it's kind of dipping down a lot lower at the sides and then coming up a little bit in the front. So we've got a bunch to fix. The darts are also totally in the wrong place slash the wrong fit. Now, something that I do have to keep in mind with this though, is this is a jacket. This goes over a dress. Yes, I should be trying this on over a dress, but I don't really feel like going out to the garage closet to get a Regency dress to put on. I know I probably should, and I know that once it comes to like sleeves and actual finishing like closures and stuff, I will go do that. But right now I'm just going to make it have enough room to put a dress underneath. It's not like Regency dresses are big and bulky. They are nice and thin and small, so I'm not worried there. But I definitely have to take this in regardless, so I'm gonna go study in the mirror and see what all needs to be tweaked on this, and I'll show you what all changes need to be made. So I think what needs to happen here is I need to take out an huge amount of the sides all the way up and also along the arm size in the front, and then I need to shorten it. I don't know if you can see the white line that I've drawn on here, but basically shorten that and continue it until it meets up with this in the back. I do think some sort of tweak needs to be done to that seam in the back, but I want to do the side ones first. The front, actually, once I take that out, I feel like the darts maybe are not as off as I thought, so I'm going to leave them for now and make those changes and see if it's a lot better. Oh, also, I just did a burn test of the fabric. It's not polyester. It actually was hard to burn at first, like it didn't want to take the flame. Then when it did, it burnt like cotton. So there may be some sort of a coating or something, like a, you know, no burn. I did already wash it, so it is clean, but sometimes those coatings stay on, but it is cotton. So that actually solved just about every fit issue that I had. I think the length is good. I'm gonna cut it out of the actual and then double check with the length, but this would be the only area right here where I'm like, is it just the tiniest bit too long? But yeah, I'm actually not minding even like the fit back here now. Even that was fixed by taking it in here. I am a little bit worried that possibly I did it just slightly too tight at the waist, just because it is a coat. And I have to remember that there's a layer underneath this, but like there is room, like I can run my hands here and it's fine. So like, I think we're okay. And I could always go to a 1/2 inch seam allowance instead of a 5/8 inch seam allowance if I really need to at these side seams to fix that issue. But even the darts, like they're actually not bothering me now. So I guess that fixed it. I didn't go quite far enough up on the shoulder, like cutting off the excess that was going past my shoulder. So I need to take that up literally like just here. And the one other thing that it has revealed to me is that there's kind of a weird excess going on in the very back of the shoulder there that I think is coming from the side back piece right up here, just being like a little bit too vertical, like giving too much space there right around the arm side. So I think I need to just tweak that down just a tiny bit, cut that little bit extra off right at the shoulders, and we are good. All right, here is the finished mock-up. I think we fixed most of that issue back here, if not all of it. It's hard for me to tell, honestly, but I think that is all fixed. I took up the shoulder just a little bit. I decided not to shorten down here. I'm still torn on that. It's like literally right here where it's just maybe a hair bit long, but I'm gonna hold off on that for now. Like I said, I'm gonna wait and see if like as I go to add the skirts, if it seems like it kind of drags down in that point. But yeah, there we go. That is the working mock-up. I am going to transfer all of these markings, both actually to the existing pattern and I think to its own pattern paper, because if you notice something about this versus something about me fitting a lot of other stuff. Though as I'm saying this, it's dawning on me, well, I'm wearing a Regency corset. That's why things are fitting differently. But normally I have all of this issue of like having to curve the center front or like having a lot of gappage over here. And in this pattern, I don't. And now I'm like, is that because of the Regency corset or is that because of this pattern? And honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe I should put this on again after I take off the corset and see if it still fits all well up there. And if so, then yeah, I might need to like turn this into a bodice block if it still does work without the corset, because it fits really well up here. And that is so unusual for what I've been getting lately with a lot of like modern patterns. So once I transfer all of the markings to patterns, I am going to go ahead and cut out the acrylic fabric over here. I am also going to cut out the skirts. I'm going to wait and see if I want to line the skirt with this until after I cut it out in the acrylic. The skirt patterns, by the way, are hanging out back there. I did lengthen them 3.5 inches before when I used this pattern, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing because the length on that was fine. The one other thing that I think I'm going to alter about that pattern is that the skirts of the pattern are meant to be completely flat in the front, like just completely flush, no gathering, no pleating, nothing like that. However, Caroline's Redingote has little pleats right here, just tiny little ones. So I think I might add a little bit of extra width, just enough that I can make those little pleats right there. Now hers is not pleated in the back. This pattern is pleated in the back. If I didn't pleat it, we would have weird lines. So I'm keeping the pleats that are in the pattern, but I'm going to add the little pleats in the front. Well, sadly, it's the Regency bodice block that makes this pattern fit so well around my bust and not the pattern itself, because as you can see now, there's issues with the dart. I'm getting extra room over here, so, and obviously it doesn't even remotely close. So yeah, apparently Regency corsets are the secret to a well-fitting bodice. The base of the bodice is all assembled with the flat lining that was the mock-up in there, and I really like the body of that. So I am going to attempt to also flatline the skirts. Whenever we are flatlining skirts, it's a little bit more dangerous because they're so big. There's a lot of kind of like room for error, and particularly with a drapey fabric like this blue acrylic is, where it could just kind of like fall out basically from being nice and flat. Now something that is nice about this acrylic is that it does with steam kind of like shrink itself up to whatever you want it to be, which is nice and may help me with that, but it's still, again, more room for error when it's a bigger piece. But I did notice that, I think it was the center back piece, after I had serged all the edges, it was just like kind of a little bit weird. Like some parts felt like it was a little droopy, some parts felt maybe a little bit tighter, and I steamed it and it went perfectly flat together. It was like, oh yes, this is what the shape is that I'm supposed to be. So yeah, we're gonna see if the same thing will be able to happen on the skirts, because again, this is just like such a nice body. Like this is really kind of the body of like a thicker wool, which is what we want here. So looks lovely here. I'm gonna go cut out the skirts and we'll see how it goes. Oh, a couple things about the skirts. I've actually decided to only increase the length by 3 inches because I realized that my other pelisse actually has a train and I don't want that. And so I may even be increasing it by too much with 3 inches, but that would give me the ability to have like a pretty deep hem, which is what I want, like a 2.5 or so inch hem. So that's where I'm lengthening it by. If it's too much, I'll cut off the excess. And then as far as the skirt front piece, this is meant to go from center front to that first like side seam. It's meant to meet up with the side seam of the bodice. And so in order to get the pleat in there, I am just going to increase the full width of this by 4 inches, because that will give me a 1-inch box pleat on either side, because pleats just take up so much. So yeah, I need 4 extra inches. Hopefully that's not too excessive as far as like shape goes, but I think that will be a good scale up from the pleats of Caroline's Redingote that is way back there in the corner, up to like my size. I don't think I'm going to change how much extra fabric is in the center back, but I might change my mind on that. Again, I like the look of how it kind of flares out in the back, like if we look at this picture right here. So even though that's not on Caroline's, I think I am going to keep that on mine. If I put it together and it sucks, I'll cut extra off. The good thing is that this fabric, both the lining and the exterior, were not expensive. And I have a lot of both of them, so I don't think I should have any issue with running out of fabric with any of these. So yeah, let's go cut some skirt pieces. So unfortunately, cutting out giant skirt pieces takes a lot of time. So I've actually run out of time. I do have some of them cut out back there. I've cut out all of the lining pieces and I have cut out one of the exterior pieces, and that one's ready to be flatlined. So I will continue to do that before the start of the next video basically. And next week we will start up with actually sewing everything together and adding the sleeves and the embellishments and hopefully finishing it up. Maybe. I don't know. I have at this point 2 weeks until the event that might not happen. So I do have another spare week that I could continue with this project, and I still also need to make the hat. So I don't know, this could take 2 weeks to actually finish, because I haven't even showed you guys that Caroline has a really cute hat. It looks like this, and I am excited to make that as well. But this is everything so far, and I think it was a pretty good start for this project. But yeah, that's going to be everything for this video. Don't forget that this is your last chance to sign up for the Ireland trip. That's next August 7th through 14th, and we are going to stay in a castle together like I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So if you do want to sign up for that, all the information is linked down below. But anyway, if you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes with additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Guardian level patrons, Jean, Kim, and the Dowager Duchess Isabel Thompson. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!